That's scientific. The way your neurons fire in the morning is the stories you've told your neurons over the last decade. And they say, okay, they get up in the morning and say, here's your story. Now you have to change it. You can change the story. So that's a story. So that's the deeply philosophical answer to your question. So now listen, if you're not careful, this is the way I'm heading. If you don't want me to head that way, then say, Shekhar, just talk about your date of birth. And I'll say, there is no date of birth. I was there before because time was in eternity. This is only eternity.
So, should I ask my next question or we can continue with the story?
Anybody can ask me a question. Please ask me a question. Don't be shy, because even being shy is a story you're telling yourself. There's somebody with a hand up there. So, do we have a mic that can go run to them very fast? And if you don't run fast, we want another questions, and then we want another.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can the rest of the people hear?
Yes.
Okay, ask me a story. The question.
Can we ever tell a story which is not influenced by the mythology of our country?
Can we ever tell a story that is not
Influenced by the mythology of our country?
Of course you can. It'll be a very surface story. Nobody will get it. Nobody will say it's a story. It's fundamentally, stories are mythologies. And if there is no relationship to mythology, then the people won't respond to that story. Because me telling you a story has no value if you are not responding, if there's no emotional response to the story. So cross-culturally, whether it's India or throughout the world, or whether between religions, all faiths, all cultures, fundamentally we have very similar mythologies. And even in my business, films that do extremely well tap into a myth. They tap into a universal myth. And somewhere, if your story is not tapping into a universal myth, the person you're telling the story to is not going to get it. Now, I can go beyond that, and I'm going to say that there is no story. You won't have a story. Because what is the story? What's the story? Tell me a story that is not... A story is a moral contradiction. Now the photographer is standing between you and me. Okay, that's my story. Now you see, he's told himself a story and moved away. What is the story? Look, do you want me to go deeper?
Yes.
The universe exists in contradiction. All art only exists in contradiction. A singer will put two notes in contradiction, and you will imagine a note that the singer cannot sing. A poet will put words in contradiction with each other, and you will imagine a word that he did not write. Just like that, a story. A story puts moral contradictions into you. So if your moral contradiction does not relate to my moral contradiction, or does not relate to some mythic moral contradiction, then it's not a story. Try it. Try telling yourself a story. I'll tell you a story. Shall I tell you a story?
Can we listen to your story, please? We would like to know your story.
I'm telling you a story right now. What I just told you is the story of my understanding of life. When I was a kid, my sister Sahela is sitting here. We used to sleep on the roof of Nizamuddin where we lived. And at that time, Delhi was not polluted. You could actually see the Milky Way. The sky would look like a blanket of stars. There was no light pollution, there was no dust pollution. And I must have been about 10 or 12. And in physics, at school, I was just being taught that in order for something to be something, it needs to be measurable. It has to have length, it has to have breadth, it has to have height, something, 3 dimensions. And I used to hear that time is the 4th dimension. I still don't understand what that means. And then at night, I would lie down, look at the stars, ask my mother, I said, "Oh, how far does this thing go? How far does space go?" And she would say, "It goes forever." Now that was a problem for me. How come I'm watching something that goes forever? But I've said forever to where? Where does forever end? But if it goes on forever, it just goes on forever. There is no end to forever. So I said, so where is the line from where I cross from what is measurable to what is not measurable? Where do I cross from what is being taught to me in school? And that line where beyond that is forever. Where is that line? And today, I ask some friends of mine who say, if I'm standing on the moon and you're standing here on earth, if you're coming to me and if I can see you, I can tell you approximately how long it will take to get there and everything. There's distance, there's time. But if I'm standing in forever, how far am I? How long will it take me to get there? Where are you and where am I? And so when each one of you, when you fell in love and say, I will love you forever, what were you really saying? Where were you? What is this forever you're talking about? So what I'm putting to you is that if you're saying I will love you forever, you're placing the other person in a place where, wherever they are, they're right there. Because if you are in forever and I'm here, then both of us are in forever in relationship to each other. And so maybe that's what love is all about. Love is all about crossing that measurable barrier and being in forever. So I've just told you a story about love. Right? So we can go on telling stories.
Absolutely. Do you feel you live your story every day? You say that we are the stories we tell ourselves, so you tell your story every morning you get up?
See, it's not a conscious act. It's not like I'm going to tell my story, but the moment I wake up and my mind starts to whirl, my mind is constructing stories. And it's then up to me to tell my mind and control my mind in such a way that it constructs a story that is more positive for me, that is more creative for me. Otherwise, the mind has this wonderful way, unless you're Buddha or you're a very evolved person, which I'm not. Unless you are very evolved, your mind will, if allowed to, tell yourself negative stories. Constantly. Here's anybody whose mind, if they let it wander, will not tell them a negative story. We all do that. We all are burdened by that mind that will tell itself negative stories. So actually, it's then we battle it by telling another story. So you say, if I cross this road, and you look at all the traffic coming, and I'm going to cross this road, or somebody there, my daughter is going to cross the road, what is the first story that comes to me? Some car will come and hit her. That's the first story. That's what your mind just tells you, right? So you just told yourself a very negative story. Now you have to counter that with, no, she's done it before. I'll send the ayah with her and everything. Now you told yourself a positive story that allows her to cross the road. It's as simple as that. You're constantly this battle of storytelling going on inside you. Yeah? Any questions? Yes? Can we get the mics to them quicker? Can you run? Oh, okay, yeah.
Why is it that our mind tells us a negative story first always, and then we come to a positive one?
Because you have an ego that needs to create you into an individual. And because your ego is very frightened. Your ego is very frightened that if you let your ego go, it cannot exist. And if your ego did not exist, then you would be one with infinite, you would be one with God, then you would not have to have an ego. So it's part of your mind that is called the ego that is constantly making its presence felt. And that's how it makes its presence felt. By constantly trapping you. It traps you. Your ego cages you. It cages you if it can, it cages you by fear. कि मुझके छोड़कर कहाँ जाओगे? सड़क भी पार नहीं कर सकते मेरे बगैर. That's what your ego is saying to you. Right? So it just traps you with fear. And so that's why wherever you go and you sit, and the first thing any spiritual person says, drop your ego. Well, what does that mean? Yeah, drop my ego. Ego cheez kya hai? And you have to sit down and understand that that mind that you have is the most imaginative thing that was ever created in this universe, other than the universe itself. The mind is so imaginative. Yes?
Does that mean that I am what are the stories in my mind are?
You are nothing but the stories that your mind is, yes. That's how you respond. Other than natural acts like breathing, the acts that are beyond your ego, acts that are beyond your mind, everything that your mind controls is nothing but the story that your mind is telling you or you are countering. As I said, you won't cross the road, you eat because you're hungry and so it crosses. Try and cross that road without your mind.
How critical is the environment for creating this mental state of the ego and self?
Can you take that so others can hear that, please?
I said, how critical is the environment that you are surrounded in when you think about these stories, and how much of an influence does that have in creating who you are through the stories that you just have talked about that you make in your minds?
You need an environment. If you're constantly surrounded by a negative environment, obviously that won't change. You need to, if you are coming towards, if you want to change, and you have been in a critically negative environment for a long time, it's very important for you to change that environment so that you can start thinking positively.
How does one identify whether it's negative or positive?
I think that most of us should learn to trust ourselves. The question that she asked is, how do you identify negative or positive environment? Well, I think you know it. You're asking me that because you know it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yes. My sister is not allowed to ask me questions. No, she's not. Yes. Okay. Give my sister the mic. She's been wanting it all her life. Give it to her.
We would like to acknowledge Sohila Kapur. Sohila, will you...
Can you just stand up, please?
Sohila Kapur, Shekharji's dear sister, and we have the pleasure of having her here with us. She resides in Delhi, Delhiites.
Okay, my question is, what about the stories that others have about you? Are they also created by you?
No.
If somebody has a story about me, have I created that story in her mind?
You influenced it through the interaction with that person. But other stories are stories they've told themselves about you in their own mind. And you will find often that stories that other people tell about us, so you'll find, say, there are your own fears. The stories I tell myself about other people. My God, he's such a liar. Watch carefully, is what you're saying to yourself. I lie. I can't trust that person at all. Watch carefully, you can't trust yourself. A lot of times when these experiments have been done, what you accuse other people of are often your own fears about who you think you are and are not. It's your impression of yourself. I'm not saying you are like that. It's your impression of yourself often will be reflected upon your opinion of other people. So a lot of times the stories about other people that you're telling yourself, right, or other people are telling of you, are their own sense of their own insecurities of who they think they are, or they know they're in that conflict. I never lie. That person is a liar. You probably lie all the time. I got over that question. That was an easy one.
Shekhar, should I quickly finish my questions and then we'll open the
Yes,
to the
absolutely,
audience?
ma'am.
Yeah, I am allowed to do that?
Yes.
Thank you. Coming back to the last story question, did your story make you or you made your story?
I think absolutely you make your own story, but the influences upon you are constantly influencing the story that you tell yourself. But you are making the story. It's your ego, it's your mind, it's your imagination that is making the story. But you are 100% being influenced.